Hi, everyone. Welcome to today's webinar, How to Be Successful on WeChat, Streetwear Edition, jointly presented by ChatLabs, Jing Daily, and Kollective Influence. My name is Charlie Gu, founder of Kollective Influence, a cross-border marketing agency that advises brands on cross-border content strategy and China market entry. Streetwear's popularity in China has been exponential rise over the last 5 years, with consumer spending reaching nearly 4 times more than on non-streetwear apparel from 2015 to 2020. With China's economy on the rebound, luxury and streetwear brands have been flocking to their entry or double down on the market. Each brand focused on their hopes for revenue growth, with WeChat being the most important app in the market. Today, we ask the question, what is the most effective way to use this app for your business? We're excited to have Sky Canaves, content director at Jing Daily, and Travis Collins from ChatLabs to discuss these exciting trends and strategies of successful streetwear brands on WeChat. Welcome, Sky and Travis. So before we start today's discussion, we're going to do a little poll in the field. So one of the fun features I learned about this platform is we can actually do live polls. So we're going to launch our first poll. So before we start discussion, how many of you have purchased streetwear, either fashion or sneakers, in the past 6 months? Looks like we definitely have the right crowd. Vast majority of our audience have purchased streetwear. Good. And if those of you haven't, hopefully by the end of this discussion, you will rush to the store or go online and on WeChat to purchase your next piece of streetwear. So today, actually, the team at ChatLabs has put together an audit report of some top streetwear brands' performance on WeChat. And first, let's welcome Travis to walk us through some of the key findings from the report. Travis, the mic is yours.
So I'm actually gonna share my screen because I actually updated that report. Sorry guys. So I'm gonna be sharing my screen and go through my presentation of it. Apologies out there. Thanks everybody for joining. My name is Travis Collins here with ChatLabs. I'm a senior digital strategist, and I'm just very happy to be able to take you guys through this report and help you guys understand how to be successful on WeChat. Before we get started, I'm just interested in what type of answers maybe to if you purchased in the in the last 6 months. I think you should know if you purchased or not, or you just want to keep it a bit more mysterious here. But that's a pretty funny answer. So let me pull up the report, and then we can pull up my deck, and then we can get started. Sharing the screen. Everyone can see my screen. Great. I can see my screen. So awesome. All right. So we asked the question, what does success look like on WeChat? That's an important question to answer. And we put together a report on that because this is actually something that we do a lot at ChatLabs. We work with our customers to build experiences that impact and engage their clients. And so we work all along the client lifecycle using mini programs and our WeChat SCRM to create innovative journeys that really captivate our customers' clients. And so we've gotten pretty good at this, and as you can see from the range of logos that we have, and so we've been able to be quite successful. Now, with that success, we've grown our team. We have most of the team actually is in our China offices, as we have them spread out between Guangzhou and Shanghai. But we also have global staff, as I'm actually currently located in the Bahamas. But we also do have offices in New York and London, so that no matter where our customers are, we're always around, no matter which time zone, to make sure that if you have a problem, we're there to help. Now, let's start talking about WeChat. It's the mega. If you're in China, there's a high chance, there's no chance that you're not using this. If you see somebody with a phone on the street, there's almost 100% chance that they're going to have WeChat on that phone. It's that important. People spend at least an hour, normally spend at least an hour a day on it, and there's so many messages that go through because it's a primary messaging tool between people. But it's so much more than just a messaging tool. It's important to life. I lived in China for 7 years, so I can tell you from my personal experience, from going to your canteen or your cafeteria, getting a bike on the road, getting a taxi, paying at McDonald's or ordering your food at McDonald's, there's no place that WeChat doesn't touch. And that's how big of an impact it has. And it's had a big impact on customers' life, and it's shifted the ecosystem so much that it's had a big impact on businesses as well. It's really reshaped the way businesses engage with customers. See, in the West, we think of engagement as normally through apps, through emails or your website, or through SMS push notifications. We would normally think of these avenues, but in China, it's very different. In China, a lot of people don't pay attention to their email in the same way as we do in the West. And so to engage them, more brands, well, almost all brands, are using WeChat to fill in the void. The official account, H5, that's helping progress the brand, like the website, like drip marketing. You're using those broadcast messages, SMS push notifications. You're using the chat function, using the notifications and the service messages to fill that void. And then apps are being used in mini programs. And so it's really supplemented and added for businesses strategies using WeChat to fill those voids. And there's a lot of things we do in the West that are being put into WeChat, but WeChat's also got such a wide range of features that it's creating new ways to engage with customers, and it's all in one space. And so for mini programs, broadcast messages, now they have WeCom for one-to-one messaging with customers, and they also have channels. So they continue to add to their robust feature set, and this gives brands an almost unlimited way to interact with customers. So let's have a look at what that journey can look like for a customer. So we put together a mock customer, and we'll call him Zhang Si, Zhang 4. And he's a normal college student, and this is what it would look. This is how brands engage through WeChat. Okay, so we're going to look at a journey example, right? So we made this, so this is just what it could look like. Now, Zhang Si is a WeFound fan, and so he loves this guy. He loves this KOL. So once he sees a post that he's talking about a brand that he likes, they decide to scan the QR code. They scan the QR code, they get to the brand's official account, and they decide to follow. Now, at this point, they don't have any personal identifiable information on this person. But because this is done through WeChat, the code, and knowing that they've scanned the QR code, so they know that they are a fan of this KOL. And then as they come into the official account, they're able to also get demographic data and then customer behavior data once they're interacting in the official account. So even though they don't know exactly who this person is, they're already able to tell what they like by where they're coming from, and be able to pull demographic data like age, where they're currently located, and the region that they've assigned to their WeChat, and a couple other details that they're able to put together and use to build a segmentation model to better engage this customer. And that's before they even have any PII on this person. Now, once they get to the official account, the brand decides to bind with this person and add them as a brand member. So this person gives them PII data by putting in their information, and they're able to pull that down to their legacy SCRM, their legacy CRM. And once they pull that data in, they're able to find that, hey, actually, Jiangsu is actually already in there. He already has an account with them. He was on the website, made an account, so they're able to bind that information. So now they know this person that before they didn't know who he exactly was. Now they have a unique account, and they're able to put it all together with their CRM data. Great. So now they know who he is. They have a contact information for him. So not only can they contact him on WeChat, but they can contact him on other areas as well. So he continues to look at content, and they're able to pull more information about him by looking at what he looks at. Now, since they've already pulled that data in and they know that he's been to the website, when they look at their data, they're able to see that he actually had an abandoned cart. He put some stuff in there, but he didn't purchase it. So what do? On WeChat, they decide to say, hey, let's send him a WeChat message and let him know that those items that he purchased are almost out of stock. And if he doesn't purchase them now, he may run out. They may run out. So they send him a message letting him know that, hey, this is your cart, and the cart to buy these things in your cart, you should act now. And so he looks at it and he decides, hey, I'm going to purchase. And so what he does is he clicks on the information and opens up his cart in WeChat and decides to make a purchase. A couple weeks later, he comes back because he wants to ask a few questions. That's okay. They have his information to link it to their CRM and pull up all the data on him and help him with his specific question. Now that he's made that purchase, they're also able to connect his loyalty data in. So before he only had 1,000 points. Now that he's made the purchase, he has 2,000 points. And so they pulled all this data in, they've added the loyalty points, and now they can start this process again on another journey using the loyalty information. And so here we see WeChat has a lot of awesome features. And when you put them together, you can create an amazing journey for your customers. This broadcast, you can push to them for free. See, once they join your account, you can actually push to them for free. So WeChat has some great features that are great to use. But the most important thing is actually not even just the features, but it's the data that you can collect. And so here, no matter if they give you personal identifiable information or if they don't, you still can contact them and you can still have information on them. So that's where it changes things. You see, if this was a website, if you had 1,000 people coming from a KOL, maybe that 1,000 people would, out of that 1,000 people, you would have 100 people that actually clicked on that actually clicked through and looked at the product. Out of that 100 people, you have 10 people at the end of the day that decided to add that product to their cart. And at the end, out of that 10, you have one person that decided to purchase. So at the end of the day, you had contact information on one person. But with WeChat, it's very different. Because with WeChat, as soon as they scan that QR code and add your official account, whether or not they make a purchase, you can contact them. So as soon as they come in, that 1,000 people, you can contact. And that's where WeChat is so different. Because you not only will be able to have information on those people, but you'll be able to contact them. And so information is important. Information, because once you put these together and continue to use them, you can build long-term relationships with customers. And that's when brands really start to see success. I love this quote. This quote says, I've learned that people will forget what you said, people will forget what you did, but people will never forget how you made them feel. And that's very, very true to people, and especially people on WeChat. WeChat gives you a great chance to continually contact people for free. And so if you take the data and use the robust feature set, you can create relationships for life with customers. And the lifetime value of a customer is super high. And so when you're making your WeChat strategies, when we're building for WeChat, it's important to build with the end game in mind, important to build with a long-term strategy in mind. And so we've looked at an example that we made up, but we put together such a great report that we actually have some examples of streetwear brands doing this exact stuff. And so from now on, we're actually going to take some highlights of our report and look at how streetwear brands are doing. And we're going to look specifically at these three sections: marketing, sales, and service, to see how brands are using the features of WeChat to engage with customers. So first is marketing. We have an example here from Stone Island, right? Marketing is actually more than just purchasing ads, right? It's important to focus on bringing people in to your official account, but it's also important to introduce them to the features that will make them stay. If you invest in mini programs, it's worthless if you don't, if nobody knows about it, if you don't let people know. And so as we saw earlier, you can build relationships for life. And so when people come in, it's important to give them the proposition, the value proposition, the value statement of joining your official account, so you can bring them in and then you can start to retain them for life. And so Stone Island had a great welcome message, and so we wanted to point that out. Here they tell you, hey, following their brand is basically great, so you can keep updated with the with their item drops, and then you can also use it for all these different functions. Now, the first thing that they point out actually is I think is the most important, and that's why we pointed out. What they have here at first is a binding activation, and so that shows that they have the CRM and they are pulling data in, and that's really important. If you're a brand and you want to have long-term relations with your customers, it's important that you're accessing that data and that you're getting it into your CRM. And so that's what they're doing here. Great ticks for that. The next thing is they're showing off their mini program. That's their store. If people aren't purchasing from you, that's not gonna drive your bottom line. So having that right up there is also really good. Then coming down, they have an autoresponder so you can get in touch with more of their services and ask more questions. And that's great because once people interact with your autoresponder, not only can they activate the services, but you can get information out of them and use that for later targeting. And so we've also done that with some of our other clients, and where we've used surveys here, and surveys work pretty well with the autoresponder as well. But once they first come in, you can use that as an opportunity with the autoresponder to get extra details out of them about who they are, and use that with your segmentation to continue to make their experience better. Next is sales. Selling products, as we said, is the most important part of a business, right? No matter how good your content is, no matter how good other things are, if you're not making sales, it's going to be pretty hard to keep going forward. And so that's why we pointed out Invincible here. Not only do they have a good store, but they've added some features in that utilizing item drops and the scarcity tactic to make their stores more exciting. And then at the same time as using these features, they've connected it O2O, so they actually online, they're driving and using the social aspects of WeChat, but they're using that to drive traffic down to their stores as well, which is a great tactic. So what they've done here is they have items that come up every week, and people are able to look at them and have a chance to purchase them. So they enter a raffle, and out of the raffle they're going to pick 13, maybe 10. It depends on the amount of shoes they have, but the release number is always very low to create scarcity. And this is an awesome tactic because not only will people be able to come in here and look through their catalog of items, when people come in, they're going to be wooed by this and want to come back next week to see if there's an awesome shoe that they can get, a collector's shoe that they can purchase, and then they'll come back again the next week. It's a great feature to get people to continue to visit the mini program. And the way that they've used scarcity, the way that they've connected it to their offline store is such a great way, because it's going to build traffic not only to their official account, but also to their stores. And so I thought this was great. This is definitely something that brands should take a note of. Last, we have Vans. Vans in the service category did really good because making customers feel great is super important. If you make customers feel like they're listened to when they have a problem, you're gonna be able to continue to build a customer relationship with them. And so, after sales, what Vans did here is when we contacted them, they were able to put a customer service agent on, actually in a very quick amount of time, 2 to 3 minutes. They were able to put somebody on, and that speed is really important. And so for brands, this is definitely something you shouldn't overlook, because when your users have a problem, this is when they're at their most vulnerable, right? This is when they're at their most anger, where they have anger the most, or where they have these feelings. And so the quicker you can make them comforted, the more they'll want to stay with you for the long term. And so we've reached the end. I'll give you guys some takeaways. First is a comprehensive digital strategy should connect all your channels to WeChat, not isolated. WeChat should not be separated. Everything should work together. As we saw with the others, right? They were able to connect data. They were able to push people to stores. WeChat should enhance everything. And so if you connect it, you'll see growth through other avenues as well. But the most important thing is your end goal should be, if a customer comes to your store, you should want to connect with them on WeChat so that you can contact them for free for the lifetime of that customer. And so everything you have should be enhanced by WeChat. If you're on JD, that should be enhanced by WeChat. If they make a purchase on JD, you should want to push them to WeChat. So next time they make that purchase at your direct store, and you'll end up making more money from that. So it shouldn't be cut off from the rest of your strategy. Next is WeChat should help you gain actionable insights on customer behavior. WeChat is super important because it gives you a plethora of data. Brands that use data well, streetwear brands that use data well, are going to be able to hold those customers for their lifetime. And the longer you can hold them, the better you can build those relationships, the better your brand will be. And so WeChat, you have to connect it to a CRM. You have to connect it to a WeChat CRM as well, so you can get the action data, the behavior data of what people are doing in WeChat. And then you'll be able to make actions in WeChat. So connecting data, super important. You don't want to lose that. And if you have a SCRM connected, great. Then you should connect start thinking about connecting your stores so that you can connect and have an omni-channel experience where their carts are linked up as well. And if you have carts linked up, then you should move on to the next thing and use that data to start A/B testing in your mini program. There's always a next level. There's always a next place you can take that data and improve a customer experience. So continue to improve on those insights so you can continue to make your customers feel like they're being prioritized by your company. Third, the mini program features should make customers want to come back again. And so this is where those insights are going to be useful. Looking at Invincible, they're able to create a feature set that made people want to come back. There's only 13 shoes that are dropping, so I have to come and I have to make a try. And so that makes people want to come and come back again and come back again. You don't have to only create a store. You can make more out of it. And so the third point is continue to strive for innovation and make a product that makes people want to come back again. And then fourth, WeChat was a customer service platform first. They don't call it service accounts for no reason. And so when you're implementing a strategy, it's always important to account for customer service. People expect that they're going to be able to be helped, and they expect it to be easy. And so this is obviously a place where that data and being able to connect them to their universal profile is going to help. So that's going to be helpful. But this is a place where it's the spending is worth it, because when people feel like they're being prioritized, feel like when they're in their hardest time they can be helped, that's when they build affinity to your brand. And so these are the takeaways. And for more, we're actually going to be dropping the report at the end of this. And so keep an eye out for that. And there's going to be even more insights in there. Jing's put some great data in there. Definitely worthwhile to read, and will definitely help your brand going forward. And so thanks everybody for the time. And I'm going to hand back the mic to Charlie.
The highlights. I'm always blown away by the wealth of data brands are able to leverage from WeChat to understand their audience and create targeted content strategies for them. Travis mentioned the omni-channel connectivity that was able to powered by WeChat. Actually, Louis Vuitton recently launched a partnership with JD.com that allowed their users, right, to browse, Louis Vuitton product on JD.com and purchase those products directly in Louis Vuitton's WeChat mini program. Just another example that how this activity could work across different platforms. So if your brand is only using WeChat as a social media or marketing platform, you're definitely missing out on a huge opportunity to build real connections with your customers. So we'll visit some of these areas that Travis covered during our discussion. And as a reminder, each of you will get a copy of the report toward the end. And then don't forget to leave any questions during this presentation in the chat field. And we might actually address those questions throughout the presentation. Today, we also have the pleasure to have Sky Canaves, content director at Jing Daily, join us. So Sky recently just finished drafting a report about Chinese cultural consumers, which focus on some of the core demographics behind the streetwear boom in China. So Sky, thank you for joining us today. And can you tell us a little bit about that report you've been drafting?
Sure. Thanks, Charlie, and thanks, Travis, for your overview and insights as well. They were very informative. So at Jing Daily, we're launching a regular program now of in-depth industry reports, primarily focused on luxury and premium sectors in China. And we've been looking at this new class of Chinese cultural consumers for quite some time now. And so we have an upcoming major report on this topic where we've conducted interviews with Chinese cultural consumers, as well as executives and leaders in a range of fields, from art to streetwear to e-commerce platforms and retail and marketing. And we'll be happy to send more information on that report once it's published in the coming weeks to the audience of this webinar as well. So for us, the Chinese cultural consumer represents a new form of demographic grouping that really goes a bit beyond the traditional generational labels of Gen Z and millennial. So it focuses on other modes of distinguishing consumption patterns. So in luxury, for example, as well as art collecting, Chinese cultural consumers, they tend to skew a good 10 to 15 years younger on average than in overseas markets. So that encompasses both millennial and Gen Z. And unlike the previous generations, older generations of luxury consumers in China, they purchase a lot less for status and brand name and more to express themselves, their individuality, their sophisticated taste, their cultural know-how, and evolving education. And streetwear plays a big role in this as part of the new luxury for Chinese consumers. And so the Chinese cultural consumer also has a very expansive view of culture, which can encompass fine art, traditional luxury, as well as I mentioned, new luxury, streetwear and sneakers, and pop culture in its various forms. So in our report, we look at a range of the markets that really matter to Chinese cultural consumers. Those include art and auctions, as well as the new gateway sort of to collecting art, which is like designer toys, collectible figurines that have become a real craze, and luxury fashion, streetwear, sneakers and resale, the culture of collaborations, brand collaborations, which is really big in China, and even the rise of NFTs in China and how they're developing there. So speaking to streetwear in particular, for the Chinese cultural consumer, streetwear really represents this part of this accessible and global aesthetic. It's part of a global community, yet it can be reinterpreted in so many ways to represent individual taste and cultural capital, as well as a certain Chinese aesthetic that we'll talk about a bit more, kind of the Chinese aesthetics and Chinese trends and Chinese elements that find their way into design and into streetwear. And when we interviewed Chinese cultural consumers for our report, one of the findings was that in terms of influence, they rely primarily on their social circles for recommendations and inspiration. And that's another way that a platform like WeChat can be so powerful. So what we've seen, the rise of streetwear in China over the past few years, it's been very closely tied to celebrity culture and reality TV. In particular, the big hip hop talent competition Rap of China that debuted in 2017. And that show made the streetwear brand Supreme really a household name in China and really much sought after across the country, even though Supreme doesn't have an official retail presence in China, since it was worn by the top celebrity on that show. And since then, we've seen a number of other shows that incorporate subcultures and streetwear associated with them, like basketball and street dance, hip hop dance. And those tie into other categories that we cover at Jing Daily, like beauty and luxury, with brands in those sectors getting involved in these shows as well. And most recently, we see an increase in the number of celebrity reality shows that are specifically focused on streetwear, that take streetwear as their subject matter and kind of place it side by side with luxury and elevate it into this new aspirational aesthetic for Chinese audiences. And we also have seen the number of, over the past year, particularly celebrity streetwear brands emerging, where some of the top singers and idols are creating their own brands. I think part of that was driven by COVID, having more time on their hands with the pandemic, not touring, not appearing on TV or films, having more time to explore other creative interests. And these have been very well received, and have been partnering with other brands on collaborations that we've seen. I think we mentioned like Edison Chen's Emotionally Unavailable, which is an older brand, but they had a themed collection with Longchamp this spring. Or Jackson Wang did a capsule collection with Fendi and an accompanying song called Fendi Man. And he's also launched his own line called Team Wang, which did an IPO with StockX on a new product drop. So those are some of the key trends in streetwear that we're seeing in China emerging and kind of merging with celebrity culture and luxury culture and collaborations in China that are very powerful.
Report when it comes out. Please let us know. And I think Sky, highlighted some of the areas that I think, like in terms of why this consumer is so important, and they're really driving that streetwear boom, the cultural shift. They really wanted to make a statement with who they are, where their place, in the world, and streetwear kind of is a tour of empowerment for that. There's a frenzy driven by the TV program, which we'll get to talk a little bit more about that later. What I think also is interesting that not only, this is a culture behind it, I feel like a lot of the luxury brands, you mentioned some collaborations, are really also going street. So that I think because these luxury brands often are, the flag barriers, and also direct the direction of the market. And so for them to go, streetwear, embrace the streetwear culture, really, I think, had an impact. Think about brands like Balenciaga, Valentino, all those brands really have done some tremendous work, and they kind of embracing that culture. So, and Dior, yeah. Scott, I have another question for you. So, there's a trend in China that has swept across the country in recent years called 国潮. It's literally translated as, China tight or China cool, which describes a style where a brand incorporates Chinese cultural elements in the design. So why has 国潮 become so popular, and how does that impact international brands, and how should the international brands, in other words, respond to this trend?
So yeah, Guochao has really emerged as like a major buzzword in China design and marketing over the past couple of years. And I think it reflects the greater interest in domestic brands in China, like, for example, the sportswear label Li Ning among young consumers. And young consumers today, especially Gen Z, they've grown up taking access to imported products and brands for granted, at the same time as they've seen the rise of Chinese brands and technology. So they've really grown up in an environment where they take pride in Chinese brands, Chinese development, and they can also take pride in doing their part to support Made in China. At the same time as kind of rediscovering some of their cultural heritage. China's vast cultural traditions and heritage are leveraged through guoqiao, and consumers can tap into that through their consumption of these products. And so a lot of guoqiao that we see does incorporate elements from traditional Chinese arts and crafts. But we also see guoqiao that uses things such as nostalgia, like classic IP, animation from childhood, or even very cutting edge advances like China's aerospace program. And the entity behind China's space program is actually a frequent brand collaborator with a range of brands like beauty brands and sportswear brands, to create these new products that kind of tap into that national pride about China's advances. And I think, especially in the post-COVID era in China, we see more domestic brands looking to tap into that guoqiao trend. And e-commerce platforms like Tmall are supporting that as well, through campaigns that support domestic brands that fall under this guoqiao banner, whether they're traditional brands that are trying to rejuvenate and revitalize themselves to appeal to young consumers, or new brands with a very cultural heritage focus to them. So in streetwear, there are a number of independent designers emerging that incorporate guoqiao trends into streetwear as well. And we're also seeing some of the sportswear giants like Li-Ning and Anta in particular, incorporating traditional themes and patriotic themes, Chinese tech themes like space exploration or mountain climbing into their products, to also ride this guoqiao wave. And so we see in some cases, in many more and more cases, as the consumers become more sophisticated, both about what's happening globally and global brands, and about China's own cultural heritage, it's no longer enough for the international brands to rely on their foreign name or foreign heritage for appeal. They also have to demonstrate now a greater cultural sensitivity and relevance to Chinese consumers. So we've seen this in luxury as well as streetwear, trends of partnering with Chinese designers, artists, even cultural institutions as an effective way of showing their cultural awareness.
I think it's really interesting that there is a fine line when you said for international brands that they need to do more. You cannot just take Chinese consumer for granted. But I think also there is a fine line. Sometimes if you completely tone deaf to the Chinese culture, you get called out. Sometimes if you just doing something too much, it might be considered as pandering, or I think you also get called out. So I think it's really important that the brands take the time to do their homework, right? To dive deeper and consult their local team on the ground and how really to deal with the cultural sensitivity, increasing national pride.
Yeah, there's a need for, just as Chinese consumers are becoming more sophisticated and educated about brands, foreign brands have to become more sophisticated and educated about Chinese consumers. The day of just slapping some lucky Chinese zodiac animal on a product for the Lunar New Year, and saying, look, this is for you Chinese consumers, and expecting them to accept that, are over. Chinese consumers are very aware of what efforts are lazy or pandering as well.
I actually read there some KOLs every season put together a list, especially during Chinese New Year, a list of lazy Lunar New Year campaigns. They actually call out some of these efforts that they consider are lazy kind of collaboration, or it's appropriation of Chinese culture. So brands definitely need to watch out on that, and just stick up local or some characters is not enough. So I think it's time, actually, we can take some questions. We have 2 questions in the chat field. First question is, could you please recommend some WeChat CRM tools? I guess, Travis, that question is for you.
I can recommend I know a great company that has just one of the best tools in the market. Charlie is smiling because he knows I'm doing a shameless plug because that company is actually our company. We have a WeChat CRM tool that works pretty well. And so I'd say maybe after the call, you can set up, shoot me an email, and we can set something up, and I can run you through what our tool looks like. And if it doesn't fit, I can also recommend you some other tools that in the market.
Awesome, thank you. So Travis is definitely the CRM guy, that if you have questions, reach out to. I think the second question from Eric has, I think, Sky, maybe you can address that. I'm interested in Sky's view on the impact if any of the variety show, big bands, summer bands, have done, I assume, on streetwear.
Yeah, so these are over the last couple of summers, we've seen the rise of new kind of like indie rock competitions, and some of them have brought back bands, Chinese bands like New Pants, that have really been around for a long time as indie bands and really brought them into the mainstream. So this is kind of almost a corollary to what Rap of China did for hip hop and streetwear in China, that now these other shows are doing for like indie rock and different kinds of music and the subcultures around them, including like their design sensibilities, which incorporate streetwear as well as independent fashion design.
Thank you. And then there's a follow-up question to the Guochao. So Orion asked, do you think that Guochao could become a worldwide trend?
It's possible as more young people around the world, take an interest in China and what's happening, not just, demonizing China or looking at it through the lens, a certain like, adversarial lens, as we see in the US, but in other parts of the world, there's probably, we've seen this huge success of like TikTok, which comes out of China among young people who are not concerned about, oh, this is a Chinese company, so we should boycott it. Or the fast fashion brand Shein, that's a huge hit with young Gen Z and teenage girls around the world as well, who say this is Chinese. But there's those products are not like particularly Guochao products. I think we may see the first area we may see is like in C beauty, Chinese beauty, because we've had Japanese beauty and Korean beauty kind of have global impact, and soon it may be C beauty's turn. In particular, the brand Perfect Diary, which has already started expanding into Southeast Asia, and its parent company, Yatsen, has started making acquisitions overseas of foreign French beauty brands as well. So we could see Perfect Diary like expanding, and it's certainly a brand that does a lot of Guochao style collaborations and brand collaborations into its products, which are very reasonably priced, that could appeal to young demographics around the world and young consumers and makeup buyers who really want to experiment with makeup, and they do a lot of limited edition drops and innovative kind of product design.
Yeah, and I think I remember recently seeing this cool campaign by the Chinese beauty brand Floris's. They did this collaboration with the Miao culture, the Miao nationality, featuring the silverware of the costume that made of silver in the Miao nationalities. And I remember seeing some international beauty influencers like William Goss is talking about it. And I think to me that is like really have a lot of universal appeal beauty. Some of the cultural elements really have a universal appeal like globally, right? It's so beautiful. If you understand more of the story behind it, it's really amazing. Now, Travis, do you have a pair of Li Ning already?
Of course. I had a great pair of Li Ning, but that was in college. That was a while ago. I need to get a pair. But they were great. Great.
And as someone who lived in China, and is, kind of from a Western, society, what do you see some of the challenges for this? We're talking about, international brands going to China, but for the Chinese brand going abroad in terms of streetwear brand, what do you see some of the challenges there might be? What would prevent you from buying some of these brands?
Sorry, I got a bit distracted by the poll. Could you say that one more time?
Oh, I said, what would be some challenges for Chinese streetwear brand to sell to audience like you?
Well, I think for Chinese streetwear brands, they're gonna have to prove that they're going to be bringing quality, And so I think that's the biggest hurdle. And for me, I had the options of purchasing Peak. I actually purchased a pair of Peak shoes and they were terrible. And so after that, after that experience of the first time I played basketball with Peak shoes, it exploded. Uh, but after that, going into leading, I went into the store, I looked at their products, and it was the quality of the shoe that really got me to purchase it. And so I think quality is where they're going to have to win on, and they're going to have to use good. They're going to have to use good things. They're going to have to make it with good quality and make it with good base products. And so I think for them, they should focus on the feel and make sure that it lasts and that it feels really good while you're in it. And so if they can take those marks, that's how they're gonna grow their popularity.
So focus on kind of the quality, right? Some of the basic stuff, and I definitely see they're catching up. Some of the recent purchases I made, on Farfetch, certainly I've seen that the quality has really improved. So I know we have talked a little bit about the experiential. So Sky, you mentioned in your report that experiential marketing is really, really important in China, right? Chinese mall developers, they have invested heavily in creating a shopping experience to get the consumers in store. And how important those events, and for streetwear brands, how those experiential retail experience for the streetwear brands.
I think they're very important because they offer an opportunity to connect with the brands and the broader community and culture surrounding streetwear, whether it be through music or art or like a skateboarding exhibition in a really authentic manner, because streetwear ultimately, like luxury in some ways, is about much more than the product itself. It's really about a community with a shared ethos, and in China, expressing individuality and kind of you want to see what other people are wearing and doing. So people really want to get out. I think in post-COVID China, just like everywhere else in the world, as we emerge from the pandemic, people will be so hungry for these experiences, and they can't yet be replicated online, or people have fatigue from online. So for those connections with others, and of course in China, like the ties between online and offline are closer than maybe anywhere else, particularly in retail. So, young consumers, they go places and they want to share that on social media. That's a big part of the culture. So they'll look to new retail to offer these tech-enabled shopping experiences. So they will be using their phones to post on social media to get product information, or engage in like gamified shopping through, for example, mini programs on WeChat. So that's kind of bringing part of the online experience into the real world as well, at the same time as they can enjoy these experiences to build community.
Yeah, I think I read that according to a research from McKinsey & Company, that 66% of Chinese Gen Z consumers prefer to browse in store but buy online. Mm-hmm. And with nearly a third of them that also prefer to browse online. Now, this goes to my next question for Travis. So, knowing that online-offline connection is so important and much closer, as Sky said, how does WeChat help really bridge the gap in that online and offline shopping experience? Travis, I think you're mute. I'm sure your answer is correct. We cannot hear you.
The online offline is a perfect instance for WeChat. We work with many brands that are actually doing experiential pop-ups, and when they bring WeChat on, it always enhances the event. So whether you're doing a raffle or you're doing giving them an experience where they can win something and bring it home, or they can invite a friend, WeChat can really add on to the experience, allowing you to do complex or to make the event to do systems or do complex things with QR codes and different activations to raise the event engagement to higher. So when you're at the event, you don't have to go one by one per person, but you can put up a QR code and do a trivia to everybody at once. And it allows you to connect with everybody, enhance the event that you're at right now, but also once they add you on WeChat, then you can connect and continue to grow that community. So it works. It works twofold from now and for later in events, but then also with stores, WeChat can with their new addition of WeCom can allow you to do clienteling and to really be able to drive. So once you get that community on WeChat, you can contact them and I forgot the name, Diary. They also do this. They also connect you to agents through their WeCom, and it allows you to connect specifically with a person. So you can take that, create a group, nurture it, and then peel them off and get them into a specific person that can bring them into the store closer to them. So WeChat can really help you to expand and do complex systems and complex engagements with people to engage a group, or also engage a specific person and bring them out to a store and allow them to have affinity with a specific sales rep. So it really enhances it from soup to nuts.
Actually, Travis mentioned the word WeCom, and I think I would like to do a quick poll. How many of you have heard of WeCom? Maybe we will have Shiana help us putting that poll on later. But so for those of you who are not very familiar with WeCom actually started as WeChat Work, right? Correct me if I'm wrong, but really has grown into a important tool, right? Especially during COVID, I've seen some of the results in early days of COVID that the Chinese retail experience are heavily disrupted with all the lockdowns, and these sales associates who were able to capture some sales really had see their business hurt, and so a lot of brands invest heavily in have WeCom and having their store associates able to talk to the regular customer one-on-one via WeChat, right? And I think one of the things, Travis, you also touched upon earlier, really important about WeCom is it provides brand with an oversight and transparency of what these conversations are. And we've heard this many anecdotal stories of how in the retail space when WeChat plays a really important role building that connection between customer and a salesperson. However, when that salesperson leave, sometimes they just take all that resources away from the brand, go to the next brand. But with WeCom, I think you're able to have the same experience with the customer interaction, but also very professional with oversight. The brands are able to retain that customer, right, when the sales rep leave.
And so if that person leaves, they can just swap out their contact to another sales rep, and the brand owns that client information.
Definitely. I think according to our poll, vast majority of people have not heard of WeCom. So I think that WeChat has a lot of branding work to do to promote this product. And I think really it is an underutilized product for brands. So this year, we're also seeing several brand partnerships between streetwear, luxury, and beauty, as Sky, you mentioned, like Off-White. So can you maybe talk a little bit more about, is collaboration still popular, or you see that we've kind of reached a point where consumers having a collaboration fatigue? Chris, yeah.
I think we'll still continue to see a lot of demand, just as we do globally, in part because there are apparently endless combinations of brand DNA into new collaborations. And they can always evolve to mark occasions that are, new occasions or different occasions that could be important, in consumers' lives. For example, this week, China has the National College Entrance Exam, the Gaokao, which is for many young people in the 17, 18 years old. It's the endpoint of years and years and thousands of hours of study and hard work. So, brands could work together to create something to celebrate this milestone, to market, that would resonate with young consumers who would, remember it for its relevance to this point in time. And those are the consumers who are going to drive the future of streetwear, luxury, and other sectors. They're young now, but they have a long future ahead of them. And, I think also, especially with international brands, as I've mentioned before, we see the trends towards collaborations with Chinese designers and artists as well. And those global brands, those can serve as very powerful platforms as well to help emerging talents show up on a worldwide stage, not just gain more recognition at home, but globally as well. And I think we'll see more of the global brand collaborations international brands working with Chinese talents, where those collaborations are not just for the Chinese market, but for a global audience and for global consumers.
Thank you. Awesome. We have actually a poll here on this, actually a small quiz for everyone on this topic. Which American artist did Dior recently collaborate with for its fall 2021 men's collection? Testing your knowledge. Oh, all right, now without further delay, the correct answer is Kenny Scharf. And so those of you who grew up in America probably are very familiar with Kenny Scharf. And I think Daniel would also be correct, but except Dior's collaboration with Daniel was last year. So, but both are very amazing artists, and I think that those are very cool campaigns. I just read an article about, I think on Jing Daily, about how the Dior collaboration, in which Kenny Scharf was able to using some Chinese cultural motifs, right, as inspiration in this, but in a very subtle and organic ways. Very interesting. And if those of you haven't, you can go to jingdaily.com. There will be an article about that. Let's take a look, and I think we have another question here in the group. Could Travis discuss the role of WeChat groups? We use them extensively as community hubs, and I've heard KOLs managing over 500 groups. WeChat groups. My favorite topic.
The customers, and to create that and nurture that sense of community. And so this is another area where WeCom is super useful. We come to manage these groups and to be able to manage them with oversight and for the entire company. The WeChat work or WeCom is going to help you a lot because it's going to be managing these is going to be much simpler on the WeCom system for you and for overall for the entire company if this is what your company is doing. So WeChat groups help the brand to connect directly with customers, to be able to give them information on product drops, be able to connect with them. And it's free because you can send messages, as many messages as you want. And so it allows you to connect with your brand fans. Normally, you're going to connect. KOLs are going to connect with their top fans, so that they can move them and call it. And so, if you're working with a KOL, right, and you want them to do so, say, hey, drive traffic to our WeChat, right? The KOL are going to go to their WeChat group. The groups that they own, they'll talk to their fans and say, hey, go to this group and can you help me get out the word? And so these fans are going to then help them to start a movement. And so for KOLs, their WeChat groups as the guy with the leaf blower comes right next to my window. Let's let him pass.
The new reality of Zoom webinars. That's part of the. Well, thank you, Travis. I think, Scott, do you have anything to add about the WeChat groups?
Powerful tool that can be used by brands, to create those kind of brand communities, especially, if it's around events and retail, and you can kind of harness the power of that and get people together to talk about, the trends and what's going on and share information and share, have brand influencers or people from within the brand communicating with consumers.
Awesome, thank you. So I guess time is almost up. And so I guess to wrap up today's conversation, in conclusion, can each of you maybe give us one takeaway? What do you think it's really important? Oh, by the way, actually, our system just remind, don't forget to download the report. I saw the link is popped up. And for all of you just attending, this would be a good tool and lots of good information there as well. But yeah, in conclusion, I think maybe Travis and Sky, you can give us like one key takeaway or you think really important for any international streetwear brands want to enter China or leverage WeChat.
I think for reaching Chinese consumers, really understanding who the consumer is, what their interests are, doing research on Chinese culture, both contemporary culture and traditions, to gain that cultural sensitivity, and leveraging WeChat. I think streetwear brands can really take a lesson for example, luxury brands on the WeChat front, where luxury brands have been so strong in creating like new forms of content and mini programs, not just to sell products, but also entertain and engage consumers, such as games. Burberry has done a couple of games for China through WeChat mini programs that have been very well received.
And Travis, anything to add?
I just want to add quickly that WeChat groups are going to be important for word of mouth. And so when you're trying to start a word of mouth trend or get things changed or implement something, right? WeChat groups are a great place to start. They're important for many reasons. And wish I had more time, I'd get into, and I wasn't intruded on by this guy with the leaf blower, but they're super important. And maybe we can do it. I know we did an event on private traffic just a while ago. I can send you a report on the notes on that, and you can take a look at. You can email me as well, and you can get more insight on the ways that private traffic can also be used and leveraged. But WeChat, this is the wrap up, right?
Yep.
So, sorry.
Don't take your time to this.
But WeChat for luxury brands, especially for WeChat for streetwear brands, coming up with your plan on how you're going to attack WeChat is going to be super important. And so definitely want to take time and really think about how you want to interact with your customers, because it's a lifelong journey that you're about to start. And so you want to think as a long-term company, and because once you get these customers, you can hold them for a lifetime. That's how you actually can get true brand success. And so we always want to start with the end in mind.
Wow, what a great way to kind of conclude that section. I think you think about the end in the mind. I think that's really important. Do your homework, right? And do your homework understanding what you want to provide to your consumers, what do you want to achieve at the end to really help. And do your homework, understand that the cultural sensitivities, the cultural elements that where your consumers grew up in or are living in every day. It's really important. So with that, I think I'm going to conclude today's webinar, and thank you everyone for joining us today. And I know some of you are joining from China. It's very late there. We're very happy to have this opportunity to have this discussion. This is our first discussion, and hopefully won't be our last. I'm looking forward to talking to you all. And if there's any questions, I think you can reach us through email for all three of us, and you can reach out to Sky through Jing Daily, and me through Collective Influence, and Travis on ChatLabs. So thank you. Enjoy the rest of your day. I'll talk to you guys soon.